What kind of son books a memory care room before his mother ever falls? Beverly Crane did not understand why Marcus would not look her in the eye as he carried her purse out of the house. He kept saying it was only for a few days, only until she felt steady again, only because he loved her. But the nurse already knew Beverly's name. Her clothes were already in the closet. A folder with her signature waited on the table, though Beverly was certain she had never signed it. When she asked for her phone, Marcus smiled like a man calming a child. Mom, this is exactly what the doctor warned us about. That was when fear settled into Beverly's bones. Not confusion, not age. Fear. Because behind Marcus, his wife stood silent, holding a silver charm Beverly had seen once before, in a memory she had spent 40 years trying to bury. Then Beverly heard Marcus whisper outside her door, "Once she signs, the hall is ours." And Beverly realized her son had not brought her there to heal. The realization did not make Beverly scream. It made her still. She stood in the doorway with one hand on the metal frame, listening to Marcus's footsteps fade down the hall, and understood that panic would only help him. If he wanted everyone to see an old woman unraveling, she would give him nothing but silence. The room smelled of lemon cleaner and warm laundry. A narrow bed sat against one wall. A pale blue blanket was folded at the foot. On the dresser stood a framed photograph of the Lantern Hall, the one taken after Walter replaced the front steps. Beverly knew that picture. It had been hanging in her office beside the coat rack. No one had asked her permission to bring it here. Beyond the door, a soft voice said, "She is settling in better than expected." That was not true. Beverly had not settled anywhere. She had been deposited like a box someone did not want to carry anymore. She crossed the room and tried the door. It opened, but only into a hall with coated doors at both ends. A woman in green scrubs looked up from a rolling cart and smiled with careful patience. "Do you need something, Beverly?" Her name sounded wrong in a stranger's mouth. "I need my purse, my phone, and my son." "Your son stepped out to make a call. Your personal items are being kept at the desk for safety." "For whose safety?" The woman paused. "That is just our policy. I did not agree to that policy." The nurse glanced toward the front office. "Director Winslow will explain everything when she is free." Beverly looked past her to the coded door. A keypad blinked red beside it. "I am leaving," Beverly said. The nurse moved her cart into the center of the hall. Not quickly, not harshly, but enough. "Let us wait for your son." That was the first honest answer Beverly had received all day. They were not waiting for a doctor. They were not waiting for her permission. They were waiting for Marcus. Back in the room, she sat on the edge of the bed and looked down at her shoes. The right one still had a fleck of dried flour on the side from the Lantern Hall kitchen. Only a few hours earlier, she had been counting table linens, tasting the punch, and telling the florist where to set the white roses. She had been useful. She had been needed. She had been home. Then Marcus had arrived too early. Tessa had followed him inside, quiet as a shadow, and Marcus had carried an envelope he refused to explain. A knock came, though the door was already open. Director Ada Winslow stepped inside with a clipboard hugged to her chest and the polished sympathy of a woman who could say terrible things gently. "Beverly, may I sit with you for a moment?" "You may stand," Beverly said. "This is a difficult transition," the director said. "This is not a transition. This is a mistake. Your son explained that you have had several concerning incidents. Name them." The director looked down at the clipboard, leaving appliances on, missing payments, repeating questions, becoming upset when corrected. Beverly laughed once without humor. "I have never missed a payment in my life, and if I repeat a question, it is usually because someone dodged it the first time. Your son provided family history. Family history is not medical history. We also received a physician's concern letter. From whom? I am not sure I can discuss all details until your intake is complete. My intake is not complete because I did not consent to it. Your son has temporary authority to arrange care during a safety emergency." "What safety emergency?" "You fell. I slipped on a loose mat and bruised my hip. That does not make me incompetent." For the first time, Director Winslow looked less certain. Beverly saw it and held still. Small shifts mattered. A director with a clipboard hesitated before hiding behind procedure. Then Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Mom," he said softly, "please do not start." There it was again. That gentle voice sharpened to a point. Beverly turned toward him. Start what? Making people feel attacked. I asked questions. You corner people with questions, you always have. Director Winslow stood. I can give you both a few minutes. No, Beverly said. Stay. Marcus smiled at the director with weary embarrassment. You see what I mean? Beverly felt the room shift against her. It was cleverly done. He made her calmness sound like aggression, her memory sound like stubbornness, and his betrayal look like exhaustion. Tessa stepped into view behind him, holding a folded sweater against her chest. The silver charm at her neck caught the ceiling light. Beverly tried not to look at it, but her eyes went there anyway. A small oval, worn smooth at the edges, hanging from a thin chain. There was a tiny nick near the bottom. Beverly's breath caught before she could stop it. Tessa noticed. Her hand rose to the charm. What? Nothing, Beverly said too quickly. Marcus looked between them. Something flickered in his face, gone before Beverly could name it. Tessa placed the sweater on the bed. I brought you warmer clothes. This place gets chilly at night. This place will not have me at night. Tessa's lips pressed together. Beverly, please. It was not the word please that hurt. It was the absence of mom. Tessa was a daughter-in-law, not a daughter, but Beverly had once hoped for warmth between them. Now even that small hope felt foolish. Marcus set a folder on the bed. Beverly looked at it, then at him. Take that off my blanket. It is only paperwork. Paperwork is how people steal things politely. Marcus sighed. This is exactly why Brent said we should do it here with witnesses. Brent Hollis has no authority over my life. He is our family attorney. He handled paperwork for us. That does not make him family. Marcus opened the folder. The top page had her name printed in bold letters. Beverly saw words like temporary care, financial access, medical coordination, and property continuity. Her eyes caught the phrase durable authority, and something inside her went hard as stone. She reached for the page. Marcus pulled it back. If my name is on it, I can read it, Beverly said. Not when you are upset. I am not upset. I am informed, Tessa whispered. Marcus, maybe let her read it. He turned on her so fast that Beverly saw Tessa flinch. It was small, almost nothing, but Beverly knew the old habit of shrinking before a familiar storm. Do not help her twist this, Marcus said. Tessa's face went blank. I was not. Beverly watched them, and a new unease entered the room. Until that moment, she had thought of Tessa as part of Marcus's wall, but a wall did not flinch. I am sitting right here, Beverly said. He looked at her then, really looked, and for one breath, Beverly saw not the boy who once hid report cards under sofa cushions, but a grown man angry that she had not disappeared quietly enough. You have made everything difficult, Marcus said. The words landed softly, but they landed deep. Beverly stood. Her hip protested, and she gripped the bedpost until the pain passed. Everything meaning my house, my business, my refusals to be moved like furniture? The lantern hall is drowning us. I have spent years keeping that place alive. You have spent years taking a paycheck from it when you showed up. I am your son. Yes, Beverly said. And I thought that meant something different from this. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Marcus lowered his voice. You cannot manage it anymore. You forget bookings. You argue with vendors. You wander around that building at night, like Walter is still there waiting for you. Beverly felt the cruelty of that last sentence like a slap. Walter's name had always been the line Marcus did not cross. Now he crossed it easily because he needed the room to believe grief was madness. I walk through the hall at night because I own it, she said, because the pipes knock in cold weather, because the back lock sticks. That is not wandering, that is work. You hear yourself? Marcus said to Director Winslow. She makes excuses for everything. I give reasons. You give performances. Beverly looked at Tessa. Do you believe him? Tessa opened her mouth, then closed it. Marcus answered for her. She has seen enough. Beverly kept her eyes on Tessa. Have you? The younger woman's face tightened. I have seen him come home shaking after trying to talk sense into you. Did he tell you he reserved this room before I fell? Tessa's gaze snapped to Marcus. There. Beverly had not known she would say it until she heard it leave her mouth, but the room reacted before Marcus could. Director Winslow looked down at her clipboard. Marcus's jaw shifted. Tessa's hand went back to the charm. Beverly turned to the director. When was this room reserved? Director Winslow said nothing. When? Beverly asked. Marcus gave a tired laugh. Mom, you are confused. I am asking the director a question. Director Winslow held the clipboard tighter. Preliminary arrangements were made in case care became necessary. How many days before my fall? It is not unusual for families to plan ahead. How many? Marcus stepped forward. Enough. The word cracked through the room. The nurse in the hallway looked in. Tessa's eyes filled with alarm, but she blinked it back. Director Winslow's face had lost its gentle polish. Beverly smiled without warmth. Thank you. That answered me. Marcus rubbed his forehead. This is what she does. She traps people. No, Beverly said. I listen when they confess. He shoved the papers back into the folder. You will sign when Brent gets here tomorrow. I will not sign anything Brent brings. Then he will file without your cooperation. With what evidence? Marcus leaned close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. With enough. The threat was quiet. That made it worse. Director Winslow moved toward the door. I think Beverly needs rest. Beverly did not look away from Marcus. I need my phone. Not tonight, he said. My purse. Not tonight. My keys. He almost smiled. You will not need them here. Something in Beverly's chest opened, not like breaking, but like a door she had kept locked for too long. This was not clumsiness. This was design. Tessa moved toward the door first. Before she left, Beverly spoke. Where did you get that necklace? Tessa stopped. Marcus's face changed again, so quickly that Beverly might have missed it if she had not been watching for exactly such things. Tessa touched the charm. My mother gave it to me. Your mother? The woman who raised me, Tessa said, and her voice had a warning in it. Why? Beverly did not know how to answer. The memory that rose in her was impossible. A room with white curtains, a nurse turning away, her own young voice begging for one look. She had spent decades telling herself grief could invent details. She would not trust it now. No reason, she said. Marcus picked up the folder, but not before Beverly saw the bottom page slide halfway free. It was not a medical form. It was a letter with the Lantern Hall name at the top. Beneath it, in neat dark type, was the phrase, proposed transfer of operational control. Beverly's hand shot out. Marcus snatched the folder back. What have you done? She asked. What I had to. For yourself. For all of us. There is no us in theft. His expression went flat. Be careful, Mom. The way you talk tonight matters. Meaning? Meaning every outburst gets written down. Beverly looked past him to Director Winslow, who did not deny it. Marcus lowered his voice again. Rest. Think about how you want tomorrow to go. You can make this simple, or you can make it ugly. He walked out. This time the door closed. Beverly heard the soft click of the latch, then the murmur of voices in the hall. She stood where he had left her, her hip aching, her hands cold, her mind moving faster than her fear. Tomorrow, Brent. Transfer of operational control. Durable authority. Physician's concern letter, reserved room, missing phone, missing keys, witnesses. She whispered each detail once, then again. Memory was not merely something she had. Memory was a tool. Marcus had forgotten that. A few minutes later, the hallway quieted. Beverly went to the window. It did not open more than a few inches. Outside, the parking lot lamps glowed against the dark. She could see Marcus's car near the entrance, its headlights off, his shape behind the wheel. Another figure stood beside the passenger door, Tessa. Her arms were folded tightly, the silver charm catching light whenever she moved. Marcus was on the phone. Beverly could not hear him through the glass at first. She pressed her palm against the sill and leaned closer, ignoring the pull in her hip. The window had a narrow vent at the side, and through it came pieces of his voice, thin but clear enough. No, she did not sign. A pause. She is sharper than I expected. Another pause, longer this time. I know what you said, but the director is nervous now. Beverly held her breath. Marcus turned away from Tessa and lowered his head, but anger carried his words upward. Then get Brent here first thing in the morning. Bring the doctor letter, bring the sale packet, bring whatever makes her look unstable. I do not care how you do it. The night seemed to press against the window. Then Marcus said the words that turned Beverly's fear into certainty, because if she walks out of that place, we lose the hall. Beverly stayed at the window long after Marcus's car pulled away, because the sentence he had left behind was heavier than any locked door. We lose the hall. Not you lose your health, not I lose my mother. The hall, that was the thing he feared losing. She repeated it in her mind with the old care she had used in courtrooms. If she walks out of that place, we lose the hall. The words had motive and panic inside them. When she turned from the glass, the room seemed smaller than before. The framed photograph of the Lantern Hall sat too deliberately on the dresser. Beverly knew it. It had hung in her office in the heavy wooden frame Walter had chosen himself. No one had asked to bring it here. She opened the drawers. Her nightgowns were inside, her cardigan, her reading glasses, even slippers from the cedar chest, the ones she had not worn in years. Marcus had gone through her bedroom and packed the private corners of her life like evidence. The anger in Beverly did not shake. It focused near bedtime. A woman in green scrubs stepped into the room with a paper cup of water and a small white pill. She was broad shouldered with tired eyes and silver in her dark hair. I'm Greta, she said. Night nurse. I am Beverly Crane, Beverly answered. Not a patient who needs to be handled. Greta's mouth almost smiled. I read your chart. Then you have already heard one version of me. She handed Beverly the pill cup. Beverly read the label first, then swallowed it because pain could blur judgment and she needed her mind clear. My phone was taken, Beverly said. Personal devices are kept at the front desk when families request restricted access. Families, Beverly repeated. That is what the paper says. My son does not own my voice. Greta looked toward the hallway. No, but on paper, he is trying to borrow it. Beverly studied her. Greta was cautious, not cruel. If I wanted to send a message to my neighbor, would that put your job at risk? Yes. Would you do it anyway? Greta did not answer at once. She picked up the empty cup and dropped it into the wastebasket. I will come back after midnight, she said. If you are awake, maybe you will remember a phone number out loud while I am passing by. Beverly nodded once. I remember everything that matters. After Greta left, Beverly lay on top of the blanket, fully dressed. She did not sleep. A cartwheel squeaked. A code beeped at the end of the hall. The building pretended to be gentle, but it was made of little locks. She thought of the lantern hall in darkness, the old bar Walter had sanded by hand, the office desk with the brass lamp, and the empty wall where the photograph had been. That frame bothered her. Walter had insisted on thick wood and heavy backing. Some things need a sturdy backing, he had said once, smiling when she teased him. At the time, she thought he meant the photograph. Now she was not sure. Close to midnight, Greta returned with towels over one arm. She paused at the door as if counting laundry. Some people talk in their sleep, she said. Beverly closed her eyes and recited Nadine Polk's phone number slowly. Greta gave no sign she had heard. She changed the towel, touched nothing else, and left. Morning came with oatmeal, toast, and a young aide who called Beverly sweetheart. Beverly said she could manage her own spoon, and the girl backed away. Soon Director Winslow arrived with an intake coordinator. They asked Beverly the day, the season, where she lived, and whether she knew why she was there. Beverly answered every question. Then she said, I also know that asking simple things does not prove a person is free. The intake coordinator wrote something down. What did you write? Beverly asked. Just notes. Read them back. Director Winslow folded her hands. Beverly, this is not a hearing. No, Beverly said. That is the problem. Before noon, Tessa came alone with a soft blue bag. She looked as if she had not slept. Her hair was tied back too tightly, and the silver charm rested at her throat. Beverly noticed it, then looked away. Tessa set the bag on the chair. Marcus asked me to bring the rest of your things. Did he ask you to bring my phone? No. My purse? No. My keys? Tessa's face tightened. Beverly, I am not here to fight. Then why are you here? Because someone has to help. Marcus is falling apart. Every time he tries to make one decision, you make him feel like a criminal. Is he not one? That is a terrible thing to say about your son. It is a terrible thing to have to say. Tessa began placing clothes into the drawer with small, angry movements. He is scared. The hall is in trouble. The roof, the taxes, the repairs. The taxes are not behind. Tessa gave a bitter little laugh. See, this is what he means. No, this is what lying sounds like when it has been repeated too often. Tessa turned, flushed and tired. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted to pack your things while Marcus sat in the kitchen with his head in his hands? Beverly heard the hook inside the pity. Marcus had always known when tears could replace proof. What exactly did he tell you? She asked. That you promised him the hall. I promised him work if he wanted it. Walter wanted the hall protected. That is not the same thing. Tessa's hand moved to the charm. The gesture was quick, almost wounded. Beverly softened before she could stop herself. Where did your mother get that necklace? Tessa's eyes hardened. It was hers. Was it from her family? I do not know. Did she have it when she adopted you? The room went silent. Tessa folded the last blouse very slowly. Marcus told me what? That I was adopted. Beverly felt the air change. No, he did not. Tessa searched her face for cruelty and found none. Well, now you know, do not use it against me. I would never use that against anyone. People say that right before they do. Beverly's voice lowered. I lost something once before I could hold it long enough to know what losing meant. I would not shame a child for how she came into a family. Tessa's anger faltered. What did you lose? Beverly almost answered, but the warning inside her held firm. Not here, not before she understood why Marcus had frozen at the sight of that charm. A life I was not allowed to keep, Beverly said. Footsteps approached. Marcus appeared with Brent Hollis beside him. Brent wore a charcoal suit and carried a leather case and wore the polished pity of a man who could move papers across a table and call it kindness. Beverly, Brent said. I am sorry to see you under these circumstances. Then change the circumstances. Still direct, still listening. Marcus looked at Tessa. Wait outside. Tessa did not move. Why? This is legal business. I am your wife. And she is my mother. Beverly caught Brent glancing at Tessa, not like an attorney glancing at a client's spouse, but like a man checking whether something he owned had stayed where he put it. Tessa saw enough to go quiet. Brent opened his case. This does not need to be unpleasant. We are trying to create a temporary structure so your affairs can continue smoothly while you recover. My affairs are smooth enough when no one steals them. Marcus sighed. Mom. Beverly looked at Brent. Where is Dr. Kemper's letter? His hand paused. Marcus said you were bringing it, Beverly continued. I have medical documentation. From Dr. Kemper? From your care file. That is not an answer. Tessa frowned. What letter? Marcus said, Tessa, please. No, what letter? Brent softened his voice. A physician expressed concern that Beverly should not manage complex business decisions without oversight. Which physician? Tessa asked. Beverly did not miss the warning. Look, Marcus gave Brent. Brent slid a packet onto the rolling table. This document gives Marcus temporary operational control of the Lantern Hall. It does not remove Beverly's ownership today. It simply allows bills, contracts, insurance matters, and potential negotiations to proceed. Potential negotiations, Beverly said. With the developer, Tessa went still. Brent's eyes narrowed. There have been inquiries. Were workers sent to measure the property? Marcus looked too quickly at Brent. Theirs was the answer, Tessa whispered. What workers? No one was sent, Marcus said. Beverly kept her voice calm. Then you will not mind if Nadine walks over and checks. At Nadine's name, Marcus's face tightened. Your neighbor needs to stay out of family matters. Family matters do not require survey flags. Brent closed the folder halfway. This is becoming unproductive. No, Beverly said. It is becoming specific. They left soon after, but Tessa looked back once from the hallway. Her expression was not trust, not kindness, but it was no longer simple certainty. That afternoon, the facility grew quieter around Beverly. A chair appeared near her door. A staff member paused whenever she entered the hall. Her lunch came with Director Winslow instead of an aide. Marcus was tightening the circle. Beverly asked for her phone. They said it was charging at the desk. She asked to see it. They said the desk was busy. She asked for a pen. An aide brought her a crayon. Beverly looked at it in her palm and almost laughed. Then she wrote on the back of a napkin, pressing hard until the blue wax marked the paper, Nadine, Lantern Hall. Office photograph. Walter frame. Look behind it. Do not tell Marcus. When Greta came near dusk, Beverly sat by the window with the folded napkin beneath her hand. You are awake early for someone who did not sleep, Greta said. I need this to leave the building. Greta did not take it right away. There are cameras near the hall doors. I did not ask how hard it was. No, Greta said. You asked whether I would risk my job. And now? Greta moved close enough with a folded towel for Beverly to slide the napkin underneath it. Now I think some sons should be ashamed, Greta said. A little before supper, Nadine Polk received the message through a housekeeping woman whose cousin played cards with her on Thursdays. The blue wax had smeared, but the meaning was clear enough. Nadine stood at her kitchen table with one hand on the chair back. Beverly not answering calls was one broken pattern. Marcus saying she needed rest was another. A secret message from a care facility was the third, and three was enough. She drove to the Lantern Hall as evening thinned across the county road. The parking lot should have been empty. Instead, two trucks sat near the side lawn. A man in a yellow vest walked beside the tree line with a measuring wheel. Another placed small orange flags near the rear corner. Nadine got out slowly. The man with the wheel looked up. Can I help you? I was about to ask you the same thing. This is private work. It is private property. We have authorization. From Beverly Crane, from the representative, Nadine adjusted her glasses. That is a fancy word for somebody who is not the owner. The man looked uncomfortable. Mom, I just measure what I am told to measure. Then measure the distance from here to trouble because you are standing in it. She walked past him before he could decide whether to stop her. The front door was locked, but Nadine knew where Beverly kept the spare key, not under the flower pot. That had ended years ago. The key was inside the crooked birdhouse near the side porch, behind the false back Walter had built. Inside, the hall smelled of floor wax, old wood, and leftover roses. The long room was dim, the tables stacked, the chairs turned upside down. It felt wrong without Beverly's voice in it. Nadine went straight to the office. The room had been disturbed. Beverly's drawers were not quite closed. A file box sat on the floor. The coat rack was bare. The wall showed a clean rectangle where the framed photograph had hung for years. Nadine took a picture of the empty place with her phone, then searched the desk. Contracts, repair notes, insurance files, sympathy cards from Walter's funeral. No lockbox. She stared at the wall again. The photograph was gone, but the nail remained. Beneath it, one narrow strip of pine sat just a little higher than the rest. Nadine pressed it. Nothing happened. She pressed harder. A thin click answered. The strip loosened. Behind it was a shallow space. Inside, taped to the wood, was a flat envelope wrapped in brittle plastic. On the front, in Walter Crane's careful handwriting, were Beverly's initials. Nadine's hands shook as she pulled it free. From outside came a truck door closing. She shoved the envelope inside her coat and pushed the panel shut. The front handle rattled. Nadine held still behind the office door while a man muttered from the hall, then went back outside. Only when the building fell quiet did she slip out the side door, lock it behind her, return the key to the birdhouse, and walk to her car without looking at the workers. She drove until she reached the dark edge of a closed farm stand. There, under the weak dashboard light, she opened the envelope. Inside was a folded note, an old clinic receipt, and a small photograph of Beverly, much younger, standing beside Walter in front of the unfinished Lantern Hall. The note was written in Walter's hand, each letter pressed deep as if he had feared someone would erase it. Nadine unfolded it. The first line made her blood go cold. Beverly, they lied about the baby. For a moment, Nadine could not move. The dashboard light made Walter's handwriting look pale and ghostly, and the closed farm stand around her seemed to hold its breath. She read the sentence again, because some words did not become real the first time they entered the mind. Beverly, they lied about the baby. Nadine stared at the empty road. A truck passed, and its headlights swept across the windshield like a warning. Beverly had once mentioned a child in a voice so quiet that Nadine had pretended not to hear. Some griefs were locked rooms, and friendship sometimes meant not rattling the knob. Now, Walter had opened the room from the grave. The note said he had found a clinic receipt after Beverly's mother died. The date matched the winter Beverly had been taken away from school. Walter wrote that he had searched slowly, afraid to give Beverly hope without proof. Then came the line that made Nadine's throat close. The child was not buried under the name they gave you. I found no death record. Inside the envelope lay a copy of a clinic receipt and the torn corner of a church family service record. One line remained clear: female infant transferred under temporary care. Nadine drove home with the envelope under her coat. She hid Walter's note behind the loose backing of a recipe frame, then called Reverend Elaine Sutter, the only person she knew who might understand where old church secrets were buried. Elaine answered with sleep in her voice. Nadine, unless somebody is dying, this had better be church roof trouble. It may be worse, Nadine said. It is about Beverly. Walter left records. There was an old clinic transfer, maybe through the family service program. That program helped some families, Elaine said at last. It also made a few people disappear. I am getting dressed. At the memory care facility, Beverly sat awake while morning crept into her room. She did not know Walter's words had been found, but some part of her felt the world shifting beyond the locked doors. Greta brought breakfast and lingered by the tray. You may have a visitor later, Greta said. My son? No. Someone less heavy on the air. An aide appeared with a clipboard. Director Winslow wants you ready after lunch. Your son and the attorney are coming. Of course, Beverly said. She ate because hunger was another thing Marcus did not get to control. When the tray was gone, she lifted the framed photograph of the lantern hall from the dresser and turned it over. The old paper tape on the back had been cut recently and pressed down again. One corner held a tiny gap where something flat might once have been hidden. Marcus had opened it. Walter, she thought, what did you leave for me? A knock came. Director Winslow stood at the door with Tessa beside her. Your daughter-in-law asked for a private visit, the director said. Private, Beverly repeated. In a building where my phone is locked away. Tessa looked pale. The silver charm was tucked beneath her blouse. I can come back. No, Beverly said. Come in. The director left the door partly open. Tessa noticed it and sat near the window, her hands tight in her lap. Did Marcus send you? Beverly asked. No. Does he know you are here? He thinks I went to pick up forms. Did you? No, the first honest word between them hung there, fragile and strange. Tessa drew a breath. Yesterday you asked about my necklace. Why? Because it looked familiar. That is not an answer. It is the truest one I have. Tessa's face hardened. Brent says old people fixate on objects when they are stressed. Brent says many convenient things. You do not know him. I know how he looks at you. Tessa stood so quickly the chair legs scraped. Do not make something ugly because you are angry at Marcus. I am angry because Marcus is lying. About the hall, about the doctor, about how long this place was planned. Maybe about more. Tessa looked down. When I asked about the workers, Marcus said I misunderstood. Then Brent called it a sale packet, and Marcus told me wives should know when to stand behind their husbands. The shame in Tessa's face hurt Beverly more than she expected. Tessa, Beverly said, your adoption. Did you ever search? Tessa's eyes narrowed. Marcus told you? No, my mother cried when I asked. She said some doors are closed because God is merciful. That is a heavy thing to put on a child. Tessa looked away. My birth date was never exact. My papers listed one date, but my mother celebrated another. She said the county made a mistake. Beverly's fingers went cold. What date did she celebrate? Tessa stepped back as if she had walked too close to a ledge. I should not have said anything. At the doorway, she paused. If you know something about that necklace, say it now. Beverly had only memory, not proof, and one wrong word could send Marcus running toward whatever he had not yet destroyed. I know it mattered to someone once, Beverly said. Tessa left without another word. Across town, Reverend Elaine opened the church basement with Nadine at her side. The room smelled of dust, old paper, and faint mildew. Boxes lined the shelves, their labels fading into half-meaning. Family service records were never supposed to be kept with membership files, Elaine said. But the women who ran that program trusted cupboards more than offices. Nadine handed her a copy of Walter's note. Elaine read it and sat down hard. I knew there were whispers, she said. Young women sent away, babies placed quickly, parents who wanted silence more than mercy. Beverly was told hers died. Elaine's face changed. Then that was not mercy. That was theft. They worked through boxes while the old pipes knocked overhead. Some pages used initials, others used clinic codes. Several files were marked with gentle phrases that turned cruel once understood. Private placement, family discretion, temporary spiritual care. At last, Elaine found a ledger wrapped in brown paper. The binding cracked when she opened it. There is the clinic code from Walter's receipt, she said. What does it say? Female infant. Winter intake, mother listed as unavailable, guardian request. Guardian. That usually meant the grandparents. Nadine's jaw tightened. Beverly's parents. There is a temper the page carefully. Name? What name? Elaine looked up. Rowan. Nadine gripped the table. Tessa's maiden name is Rowan. Elaine put one hand flat on the ledger. That may be coincidence. Do you believe that? I believe coincidence is where truth hides when people are afraid to touch it. In a tin file box damaged by an old leak, they found a gray intake card. The edge was stained, but the writing survived. Female infant, winter storm delay, bracelet tag number, mother initial B, infant initial, one letter written crossed once, then written darker. Nadine whispered, "Does that mean what I think it means?" Elaine's voice was low. "It means someone started to give that baby a name." That afternoon, Beverly sat through Marcus and Brent's meeting without signing a single line. Brent used soft words, temporary, protection, cooperation, unnecessary conflict. Marcus spoke less, which meant someone had warned him that anger was leaving marks. Beverly asked for copies of every page. Brent said that could be arranged later. She asked for Dr. Kemper's full statement. Brent said medical summaries were sufficient. She asked whether the property had been shown to a buyer. Marcus said no too quickly. At the end, Brent closed his case. "Beverly, refusing help will not strengthen your position. Neither will false papers strengthen yours." His smile thinned. "Be careful with accusations. I was a court stenographer for most of my working life. I know the difference between accusation and observation." Marcus stood. "We are done." "No," Beverly said. "You are leaving. That is different." As he passed, he leaned close. "You think Nadine can save you?" Beverly did not answer. His eyes darkened. "She cannot." That evening, Greta brought tea Beverly had not requested. Beneath the saucer was a folded slip of paper. "Nadine is coming tomorrow with Reverend Elaine. Trust only what can be copied." Walter found clinic papers. Beverly pressed the note to her mouth. Walter's name entered the room like warmth and grief together. He had been fighting for her even after his breath ran out. She slept badly. In her dream, she was young again, in a white room with frost on the window. Her mother stood near the door and said, "It is over, Beverly. Do not make it worse." Somewhere a baby cried, or perhaps Beverly had invented the cry later because silence was too cruel to remember. By late morning, Greta brought Beverly to a small visiting room. Nadine entered first and took Beverly's hands. "You found something," Beverly whispered. "I found what Walter wanted found." Reverend Elaine came behind her with a plain envelope. She sat across from Beverly, sorrow heavy in her eyes. "Beverly," Elaine said gently, "I am sorry." Beverly hated those words. They always arrived before pain. Nadine placed the copied note on the table. Beverly read Walter's opening line and stopped breathing. "My baby died," she said, but it came out like a question. Elaine answered carefully, "That is what you were told. My mother said there was no need to see her." Nadine squeezed her hand. "My father signed something. I remember a pen. I remember him wiping it with his handkerchief afterward, like the ink had dirtied him." Elaine slid the copied ledger entry forward. There was a clinic receipt, a church transfer code, and a temporary care record. Beverly stared at the words. Temporary care? That did not always mean temporary. The room inside Beverly's memory opened. She saw white curtains, felt a hand pressing her shoulder down, smelled her mother's perfume. "Did she live?" Beverly asked. Nadine did not look away. "The record says she was transferred." "Transferred where?" Elaine hesitated, then pointed to the temporary placement name Radwan. The name waited in Beverly's mind, then struck. "Tessa," she whispered. "We do not know," Elaine said quickly. "It may be only a connection. We need sealed records. We need dates. We need the full chain." "What dates?" Elaine slid the intake card across the table. Beverly looked down. The winter date on the card was old, plain, and merciless. She had carried that date in her body for years. Beside it were initials: mother initial, B infant initial, one letter pressed dark after being corrected. A bracelet tag number followed. Beverly touched the copy with 2 fingers. "I named her in my head," she whispered. Nadine leaned close. "What name?" I was not allowed to say it out loud. "My mother said names make grief worse." "What was it?" Beverly closed her eyes. "Grace." "Because I needed some." The door opened before anyone could speak. Tessa stood there. Director Winslow hovered behind her. "Your daughter-in-law is here." "I did not realize you already had visitors." The copies lay on the table, but Beverly folded Walter's note under her palm. Nadine covered the ledger page with her purse. Elaine sat very still. Tessa looked at the hidden papers. "I can come back." "No." Beverly said, though her voice trembled. Stay. Tessa stepped in slowly. The silver charm was visible again, lying against her blouse. Beverly could not stop looking at it. Elaine gathered the loose copies. One small page slipped and landed near the edge of the table. Beverly reached for it. Tessa reached at the same time. Their fingers touched the paper together. It was the copy of the intake card with the bracelet tag number. Tessa froze. What is that? Old records, Elaine said. Whose records? No one answered. Tessa looked from Beverly to Nadine to Elaine. Why is Rowan on that page? Beverly's heart struck so hard she could hear it. Tessa picked up the copy. Her eyes moved over the writing, the name, the winter date, the infant note, the bracelet tag number. My adoption papers had a bracelet number, she said slowly. My mother kept a hospital card in her Bible. The room went silent. What bracelet number? Nadine asked. Tessa shook her head, but her hand had gone to the charm. I do not remember all of it. Try, Elaine said gently. I said I do not remember, but Beverly saw that she did. The number was somewhere inside her, locked with childhood and guilt and fear. Before Beverly could answer, Marcus's voice cut through the hall beyond the window. What is she doing here? Tessa turned toward the sound. Through the visiting room glass, Marcus was striding toward Director Winslow, his face tight with alarm. Brent Hollis followed a few steps behind him, carrying his leather case, but when he saw Tessa inside the room, he stopped. Not because of Beverly, because of Tessa. Beverly saw it as clearly as sworn testimony. Tessa looked through the same window, her face draining of color. Her hand closed around the silver charm at her throat. Then the charm shifted in her fingers, turning just enough for Beverly to see the underside. There, worn nearly smooth but still visible, were two tiny letters scratched into the old silver. Beverly's hand rose to her mouth. They were the letters she had whispered to a baby no one let her keep. Across the glass, Tessa stood between Marcus and Beverly, between the life she knew and the truth pressing toward her. And Beverly understood with a terror deeper than grief that the woman who had helped take her home might be the child stolen from her arms. Tessa's fingers closed around the charm as if she could hide the letters by force, but Beverly had already seen them. Through the glass, Marcus was coming toward the visiting room with Brent behind him, and both men wore the same look. Not surprise. Alarm, Tessa, Marcus called from the hall. Step away from that table. His voice was not worried. It was a command. Tessa did not move. The copied intake card shook in her hand. Why is my family name on this paper? Brent reached the doorway first. He glanced at the papers, then at Tessa, then at Beverly. For one breath, his polished face went empty. This is not an appropriate conversation, Brent said. Reverend Elaine rose from her chair. It became appropriate when old records were hidden from the woman they belonged to. Marcus pushed into the room. Give me those papers. Nadine stepped between him and the table. You touch one page and I will make enough noise to bring every nurse in this building. You have no right to be here. Marcus snapped. I was invited by Beverly. She is under care. Beverly looked at Director Winslow, who had followed them in with a pale face. Then return my phone, my purse, and my keys, and let us see how voluntary this care is. The director looked down. That silence answered more than any confession could have. Tessa turned slowly toward Marcus. You said she needed rest. You said this was temporary. It is temporary, Marcus said. Then why are you afraid of her leaving? His jaw tightened. Director Winslow lifted both hands. We need to move this to my office. No, Beverly said. We need witnesses. The office was too small for so many lies. Beverly sat with Nadine beside her and Reverend Elaine near the door. Greta stood quietly with a chart against her chest, pretending she had only come to check a patient file. Tessa sat across from Beverly, the silver charm now hidden in her fist. Marcus stood behind his wife until she looked up at him. Do not stand over me. He moved away, but anger followed him like heat. Brent placed his leather case on the table. This meeting concerns Beverly's care plan and temporary authority over the Lantern Hall. These old papers are a distraction. Beverly kept her voice steady. The matter is whether my son is using false concern to take my property. A record he does not want seen is not a distraction. Marcus laughed once. Listen to yourself. Beverly turned to Director Winslow. Please write down that Marcus called my statement unreasonable. The director blinked. I am sorry. If my words are being judged, his should be recorded too. Greta looked at the floor, but Beverly caught the briefest flicker of approval on her face. Brent slid a page from his case. The facility received a physician's concern letter, family statements, and a report of unsafe conditions. That is enough to support temporary supervised care while a broader review is arranged. Show me the physician's letter, Beverly said. Brent did not move. Show it to me. Marcus said, You have seen enough. I have seen pages held just far enough away from my eyes. That is not the same thing. Tessa looked at Brent. Let her read it. Brent's smile toward Tessa carried warning. This is not helpful. No, she said. Hiding it is not helpful. He laid the page on the table. Beverly did not reach for it too quickly. She knew they were watching for weakness. Nadine slid it closer. The letter carried Dr. Paul Kemper's clinic name and claimed Beverly had shown severe memory trouble, unsafe judgment, and resistance to care. Beverly read the last line twice. That is not his signature, Marcus scoffed. Now you know handwriting too. I watched Paul Kemper sign forms for years. His letter P has a long loop. This does not. Brent took the page back. Signatures change, not into someone else's hand. Greta stepped forward. Director Winslow, may I speak? Marcus turned sharply. No, the director looked at Greta, then at the page in Brent's hand. Go ahead. Greta opened the chart. Beverly's room was reserved several days before the fall. Visitor limits and personal item restrictions were requested before she arrived. A belongings list was also sent ahead. Tessa's face went white. Before she fell? Greta nodded. Marcus spread his hands. Planning ahead is not a crime. Beverly looked at him. Packing my clothes, removing my office photograph, and reserving a room before I slipped is not planning. It is staging. I was trying to prevent disaster, he said. What disaster? The hall, the debts, the repairs. The taxes are current. The insurance is paid. The roof was scheduled for spring work. You cannot keep doing this, Marcus said. And now the polish in him cracked. You cannot keep pretending that old building is worth more than the people carrying it for you. Beverly absorbed the pain inside the insult. Pain could explain cruelty. It did not excuse theft. Nadine took out her phone. If nothing is being sold, why were survey workers on the property yesterday? She turned the screen toward the table. The picture showed orange flags near the Lantern Hall lawn and a man with a measuring wheel beside the side porch. Another picture showed the empty wall in Beverly's office, where Walter's photograph had hung. Tessa stared at it. You told me no workers had been sent. Marcus looked at Brent. Brent spoke smoothly. Preliminary property interest is not a sale. Then say the buyer's name, Beverly said. That would be premature. You mean profitable. Marcus slammed one palm on the table. Enough. The plant on the corner shelf trembled. Tessa flinched. Beverly saw it. So did Nadine. Director Winslow's voice lowered. Marcus, please sit down. I am the only person here trying to keep this family from drowning. What family? Beverly asked. The question seemed to strike him in a place he had not guarded. He looked at Tessa, then at the papers, then away. Tessa saw the movement. When did you find the lockbox? Marcus's face tightened. What? Walter's lockbox. Beverly said something was hidden. You found it, did you not? Beverly did not breathe. Marcus looked toward Brent. That was enough. Tessa's voice shook. When? After Dad died, Marcus said. The word Dad cut Beverly cleanly because Walter had tried to protect her truth and Marcus had buried it. What was inside? Beverly asked. Old papers, nothing complete. About my adoption? Tessa asked. No, the answer came too quickly. Brent closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, then opened them. Tessa caught it. You knew, she said to Brent. Tessa, I knew Marcus had found sensitive family material. Do not say sensitive. Say what it was. Brent leaned toward her. You are upset because everyone in this room knows something about me except me. Marcus stepped closer. This is not about you. She turned on him. Then why is Rowan on that card? Why did you hide the lockbox? Why did Brent know my maiden name was in old church records? Marcus opened his mouth, but no answer came. Beverly felt the question of Tessa rising in the office like flood water. She wanted to reach for the younger woman, but she held still. Proof mattered, timing mattered. A desperate truth, spoken too soon, could be twisted into confusion. Reverend Elaine placed one copied record on the table. This church ledger shows a female infant transferred through a private family placement. The temporary placement name was Rowan. That does not prove identity by itself. But it is enough to demand the full record. Brent snapped, "Those records are incomplete." Elaine looked at him. "You seem very familiar with them." He fell silent. Greta handed Director Winslow another page. "There is also the pre-admission log." Marcus signed the first intake request before Beverly's fall was reported. Marcus said, "I was worried." Greta's voice stayed even. "The log was removed from the binder this morning. I copied it before it disappeared." Director Winslow looked at Marcus. "You removed a facility record?" Marcus' face darkened. "I removed confusion." "No," Beverly said. "You removed proof." The director reached for the copied log with shaking hands. Whatever safety she had thought procedure gave her was gone now. Procedure had a paper trail. Beverly said, "Call Dr. Kemper." Brent stood. "That is unnecessary." "Then it should not frighten you." Director Winslow hesitated, then picked up the office phone. It took several minutes before Dr. Kemper's rough voice filled the room. "Beverly, are you there?" "I am here, Paul." "Did you write a letter saying I have severe memory decline?" "No," he said at once. "I wrote that you had a bruised hip and should rest. Any question about your decision making needed a proper evaluation. I did not provide one." Brent said, "Doctor, perhaps there were later notes from your office." "I refused to sign that capacity language when it was sent to me," Dr. Kemper replied. "Do not dress it up." Beverly looked at Marcus. "Did you contact him before I fell?" Dr. Kemper answered carefully. "Marcus called earlier that week. He asked what would be needed if a parent could no longer manage business affairs. I told him I could not discuss you without consent." Tessa whispered, "Earlier that week." Dr. Kemper's voice sharpened. "Worry is not permission to turn soreness into incompetence." The call ended, but the truth stayed on the table. Director Winslow stood. "Beverly, I need to review your admission immediately. Your personal items will be returned." "My phone first," Beverly said. The director opened a drawer and removed it from an envelope with Beverly's name. Beverly took it. The screen bloomed with missed calls and messages. Brent began gathering his papers. "We should reconvene with formal counsel." Beverly looked at him. "Bring someone who tells the truth." His hand stopped, then continued. Tessa rose slowly. Her eyes were not on Marcus now. They were on the charm in her palm. "My adoptive mother kept a hospital card in her Bible," she said. "There was a number on it. I used to think she kept it because she loved having proof that I had come to her." Reverend Elaine spoke gently. "Do you remember the number?" "Not all of it." "Any part?" Tessa looked at the copied intake card. Her lips moved once without sound. Then she shook her head hard, as if refusing to open a door inside herself. Marcus reached toward her. "Come home. We will talk." She stepped back. "Home? You brought Beverly here, hid her phone, lied about the doctor, and tried to sell the hall. What would you do to me if I became inconvenient?" His face crumpled with anger and something that might have been hurt. "I was doing this for us." "No, you were doing this around me." Brent moved toward Tessa, his voice low in a way that changed the air. "You need to be careful right now." Beverly saw the intimacy in that tone. Nadine saw it too. Marcus, even through his fury, seemed to hear something he had not heard before. Tessa turned on Brent. "Do not speak to me like you own my fear." He went still. The office became very quiet. Beverly felt another secret stir, but she had no room for it yet, one storm at a time. Tessa unclasped the chain from her neck and laid the silver oval on the table. "Beverly, read it," Marcus said. "Do not." She did not look at him. "Read it." Beverly picked up the charm. The silver was warm from Tessa's skin. She turned it over and saw the two tiny letters scratched into the underside, almost worn away by years, a G, a C, the initials of a name she had only dared to whisper in her heart. Her hand began to shake. She set the charm down before Marcus could use the tremor against her. "I cannot prove today what this means," Beverly said, "but I know those letters." Tessa's voice broke. "How?" Beverly looked at the younger woman across the table. She saw fear, anger, and a child's old hunger for a story that finally made sense. "Because once," said, "there was a baby I wanted to name Grace Crane." Tessa covered her mouth. Marcus sank into a chair. "I did not know for sure. The words were small, but they changed everything." Beverly turned toward him. "But you knew enough." He did not deny it. "You knew enough to hide Walter's lockbox," she said. "You knew enough to ask a doctor about declaring me unfit. You knew enough to rush the sale." Marcus stared down at his hands. Brent said it might complicate the estate. He said if there was a biological heir somewhere, people would start asking questions. He said Tessa did not need to be dragged through dead shame, unless we were sure. Tessa looked at Brent as if seeing him across a canyon. You discussed me like property. Brent's face hardened. I advised a client. Which client? Beverly asked. Marcus or the buyer waiting for my land? He did not answer. Director Winslow returned Beverly's purse and keys with a shamefaced apology. Beverly was too tired to accept. Beverly placed them beside her phone. Small things, enormous things, a voice, a wallet, a door. Tessa came around the table, stopping close enough that Beverly could see the faint red mark where the chain had rested on her neck. She placed the charm in Beverly's palm and folded Beverly's fingers over it. Outside the office window, late afternoon lights spread across the parking lot. Cars came and went. Somewhere down the hall, a resident laughed at something ordinary. Life kept moving, careless of the moment, when one woman's past rose up and touched another woman's skin. Tessa's eyes filled, but she did not look away. Her voice trembled so hard the words seemed to break open before they reached the air. Are you my mother? Beverly could not answer at once because the question did not enter her ears like a sentence. It entered her like a hand reaching through decades of locked doors. Tessa stood before her with the silver charm gone from her throat and trembling in Beverly's palm, and every person in the room seemed to wait for one old woman to make sense of a life that had been stolen in pieces. I do not know how to answer without proof, Beverly said, though her voice broke around the word proof. But I know this. I had a daughter. I was told she died. I wanted to name her Grace. And that charm carries the letters, I whispered, when no one would let me keep her. Tessa closed her eyes as if the room had tilted. Marcus reached for her again, but she moved away before his fingers touched her sleeve. You knew enough? She said. Marcus's face twisted. I knew enough to be afraid. Afraid of what? That your mother had lost more than you ever cared to understand, that your wife had a history before you, or that the property would not be simple anymore. It was never simple. Marcus said, You think I wanted this? Beverly looked at him with a sadness that had no softness left. You wanted the hall. Everything else became an obstacle. Brent snapped his case shut. No one should say another word until everyone has proper counsel. Nadine laughed without humor. That may be the first honest sentence you have said. Tessa turned to Brent, and the look on her face made his confidence falter. How long have you known my adoption records might connect to Beverly? Tessa, this is emotional speculation. How long? Marcus brought me papers from Walter's lockbox, Brent said. Some names appeared. Nothing was certain. And you said nothing to me. I was protecting you from pain. No, Tessa said. You were keeping me useful. Marcus stared at her. What does that mean? The question hung like smoke. Tessa's lips parted, but Brent stepped forward too quickly. It means she is upset and being pressured by strangers. Beverly saw Tessa's face change, not fear now, shame, then anger. A different truth was pressing against the walls, one that Marcus had not come prepared to face. Tessa looked at her husband. Brent and I crossed a line. Marcus went still. It began after Walter died, she said. You were angry all the time. Brent listened. I let that become something it should not have become. I am not proud of it, but he used that too. He knew I felt unwanted. He knew I was adopted. He knew I wanted someone to tell me I mattered. Marcus's face drained, then reddened. You and him? Brent said. This is not the place. Marcus turned on him with a sound that was almost a laugh. Not the place? You stood beside me while you were sleeping with my wife? Director Winslow reached for the phone. I am calling security. No one is hitting anyone, Beverly said. We are done letting rage decide what happens next. Marcus pointed at Brent. He set this up. Beverly held the charm tighter. He helped. You chose. That was the sentence that broke him. Marcus simply sat down and put both hands over his face. For a moment, Beverly saw the little boy she had adopted. The child who used to hide under the office desk when storms rolled over the river. She had loved that boy. She still loved the memory of him. But memory was not permission to keep hurting her. Director Winslow called security and the county office that handled abuse of vulnerable adults. Brent protested until Nadine raised her phone and said the room had heard enough to make a useful recording. He stopped then. By evening, Beverly was no longer listed as a restricted resident. She refused a wheelchair and walked out with Greta beside her, Nadine carrying the folder, Reverend Elaine carrying the records, and Tessa following as if she did not yet know whether she had the right. At the entrance, Marcus stood near the glass doors with his arms hanging at his sides. "Mom," he said. Beverly stopped. For a foolish, aching instant, she wanted him to say something true. He swallowed. "What happens to me now?" The question told her everything. "I do not know," Beverly said, "but for the first time in a long time, it will not be my job to protect you from the answer." He looked as if she had struck him. She walked past him into the evening air. Nadine drove Beverly to the Lantern Hall. The river road curved through dark trees, and the lights appeared slowly, one window at a time. The orange survey flags still stood in the grass like small, ugly warnings. Beverly got out. The building looked wounded, but it was still there. Tessa stepped from Reverend Elaine's car and wrapped her coat around herself. She kept a careful distance. "I can leave," she said. Beverly looked at the hall, not at her. "Do you want to?" "I do not know what I want. I do not even know what my name means tonight." "Then stay until you know one thing." They went inside together. The office was cold. Beverly turned on the brass lamp, and light fell across the desk where Walter used to sort receipts. Nadine laid the papers down. Reverend Elaine placed the church copies beside them. Tessa stood at the door, searching for a trace of a life she had missed. Beverly took the framed photograph from her bag. Greta had brought it from the facility before they left. The back was already cut. Beverly lifted the paper and found nothing inside. Marcus emptied it. Nadine said softly. "No," Beverly said, because she heard Walter's voice again. "Some things need a sturdy backing." She removed the thin cardboard insert behind the photograph. Beneath it was another layer glued more tightly. Nadine brought a letter opener from the drawer. Beverly slid it under the edge and worked slowly until the backing gave with a soft crack. A second envelope lay hidden inside. Tessa covered her mouth. Beverly did not open it immediately. Walter's name was written across the front, along with one sentence: "For Beverly, when guessing is no longer kind." Her hands shook too badly, so Nadine opened it for her. Inside were copies of letters, a clinic bracelet record, and a note from Walter explaining what he had learned before his heart failed him. He had found no death record. He had found a private transfer. He had found the Rowan name. He had not found the daughter herself, but he had written that he suspected she was nearer than anyone knew. At the bottom of the note, Walter had added one final line: "Forgive me for not getting there in time." Beverly sat down in Walter's chair and pressed the paper against her chest. Tessa whispered, "He was looking for me. He was looking for the truth." Beverly said, "Maybe that means he was looking for both of us." The next days did not bring peace. They brought appointments, questions, copies, calls, and rooms where paper finally moved against paper. Dr. Kemper signed that he had not declared Beverly incapable. Director Winslow turned over the pre-admission logs. Greta gave a statement about the missing pages. Nadine handed over photographs of the survey workers. Reverend Elaine produced certified church copies. Brent resigned before anyone could remove him, but the resignation did not save him. The buyer's representative admitted Brent had discussed a fast sale before Beverly ever entered care. The forged medical language became part of a formal complaint, and his affair with Tessa stripped the shine from him. Marcus said he was overwhelmed. He said he had made mistakes. Beverly believed part of his pain was real, but real pain could still become a weapon, and he had aimed his at her freedom. The property transfer was halted. The developer withdrew because the title had become too noisy. Beverly changed the locks, changed the accounts, and placed the Lantern Hall under legal protections that no one could move without her direct consent. She also removed Marcus from every authority he had once held. When her lawyer asked if she wanted to add a family successor, Beverly looked at the empty line and said, "Not today. I am done confusing blood, love, and paperwork." Tessa did not ask for anything. That mattered to Beverly more than any apology could have. She stayed in a small motel near the river and called the woman who had raised her. The call lasted less than 10 minutes. Afterward, Tessa came to the Lantern Hall with swollen eyes and sat on the back steps. She said she did what she was told. Tessa said Beverly sat beside her, leaving space between them. That is what people say when they want obedience to sound like innocence. she cried. That does not mean she lied less. Tessa nodded, staring at the river beyond the trees. She had the hospital card. The number matches Walter's record. Beverly closed her eyes. There were still formal tests to finish, signatures to verify, sealed files to request, but the world had already shifted past denial. Tessa took the silver charm from her pocket. I wore this because I thought it meant somebody chose me. Maybe it did, Beverly said, but not everybody who chose you told the truth. Tessa's laugh broke into a sob. I helped them put you in that place. You believed your husband. I judged you. You were lied to. I still did it. Beverly looked at the river. Then remember how it felt, not so you can punish yourself forever, so you do not become the kind of person who needs lies to live comfortably. Tessa wiped her face with both hands. Do you hate me? No. Do you love me? The question hurt because Beverly wanted a simple yes. She wanted time to fold itself kindly and place a newborn in her arms. But truth had become too precious to cheapen with comfort. I think I began loving you before I knew your face, Beverly said, but I do not know how to be your mother yet. Tessa nodded as tears slid down her cheeks. I do not know how to be your daughter. Then we will not pretend. We can begin smaller. With what? Beverly looked toward the back door of the hall, with coffee and work gloves. The side porch needs sanding. For the first time, Tessa almost smiled. Marcus did not come back for weeks. When he finally did, Beverly opened the locked front door but did not invite him in. I need to talk to you, he said. We are talking. He glanced over her shoulder at the hall. So that is it. I lose everything. You lost access. You did not lose everything. I was your son. You are my son, she said, but being my son did not give you the right to cage me. I thought you would forgive me. I might one day. Forgiveness is not a key to my accounts. His mouth trembled with anger. You have her now. That is what this is. No, this is about what you did when you thought I was alone. Marcus looked past her then. Tessa stood near the bar, holding clean napkins. She did not come closer. He saw her and flinched. Tess, she answered quietly. Do not. That single sentence seemed to finish something in him. He stepped back. Beverly watched him leave and did not call him back. Love, she was learning, could stand at a doorway and still refuse to open it. Spring arrived slowly along the river. The grass grew over the holes where the survey flags had been pulled. Beverly hired local carpenters to repair the porch and replace warped boards near the kitchen entrance. She moved Walter's photograph back to the office wall, but she placed his final note in a safe, not as a shrine, but as evidence that love sometimes worked quietly until someone was ready to hear it. The formal parentage report came on a rainy Tuesday. Beverly and Tessa opened it together at the Lantern Hall office desk. The words were clinical, careful, and final. Beverly Crane was Tessa Rowan Crane's biological mother. Tessa read the page once, then again. Beverly waited. At last, Tessa whispered, "Hello, Grace." Beverly reached across the desk. Tessa took her hand. They did not hug right away. The moment was too large for that. Instead, they sat with the paper between them and let the truth be quiet. A month later, the Lantern Hall reopened for a community gathering. Not a wedding, not a sale event. Just coffee, pie, old music, and neighbors who had heard enough rumors to know something terrible had happened, but enough kindness to avoid asking for the whole wound. Greta came in her Sunday coat. Nadine brought lemon cake. Reverend Elaine stood near the guest book and cried. Dr. Kemper arrived late and grumbled that the coffee was too weak, which made Beverly laugh for the first time in what felt like years. Tessa helped hang paper lanterns from the beams. She moved through the hall, not like an owner, not like a stranger, but like someone learning the shape of a place that might someday hold her without asking her to lie. When the room filled, Beverly stood near the small stage Walter had built and looked across the faces. For a moment, she saw what almost happened. The hall emptied, sold, torn apart, her name reduced to a signature on papers she had not understood. Then she saw what remained, would light witnesses' truth. Tessa came to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Beverly did not introduce her as her daughter. Not yet. She did not need to turn a fragile beginning into a performance. She simply placed one hand over Tessa's and let the room see what it could. Outside, the river moved on, carrying away rainwater, leaves, and the last cold pieces of a hard season. Beverly looked toward the office wall where Walter's photograph hung again. Then she looked at the people gathered inside, at the woman beside her, and at the open doors that no one would lock against her again. She had not recovered the years. She had not repaired the family into something smooth, but she had taken back her name, her home, her voice, and the truth that had waited too long in the dark.